There are certain stories that never fade from a town's memory. Hamilton, Ohio, a modest Midwestern city nestled along the banks of the Great Miami River. In the 1970s, it was a place where neighbors knew one another, front doors were left unlocked, and Sunday mornings were sacred. A town where families gathered after church to share laughter, roast dinners, and quiet joy. But on one Easter Sunday, joy was replaced with horror. On March 30, 1975, the unthinkable happened inside a small brick home on Minor Avenue. 11 people, 3 generations of the same family, gunned down in cold blood. The youngest just 4 years old. The oldest, a mother who had given everything to keep her family together. This was not a break-in. This was not random. There was no intruder in the shadows. The killer didn't come from outside that home. He sat at the same table. Ate the same food. Smiled in the family photo. His name was James Urban Ruppert. The man who would later say, "They were all laughing at me." But no one was laughing when it was over. Police described the scene as the worst in Ohio's history. James was 41 years old. Unemployed. Quiet. A man some called odd, others called brilliant. But no one expected what would happen that afternoon. By the time police arrived, the house was still. Too still. No screams. No movement. Just silence, and 11 bodies. Why did he do it? What led to this moment? As the investigators pieced together the timeline, they uncovered more than just bloodshed. They found decades of resentment. Mental illness left untreated. A fractured family. A quiet man who had been unraveling while the world around him barely noticed. In the next hour, we will walk through the case, every fact, every witness account, every unanswered question. You'll learn about the lives lost, the man behind the murders, and how one ordinary Easter became the single darkest day in the history of Hamilton, Ohio. This isn't just a story of murder. It's a story about the things we don't say. The signs we miss. And the unimaginable cost of silence. You're not just watching another true crime video, you're stepping into the story. At Crime That Haunts, we don't just tell cases, we live in the shadows they leave behind. If you believe every crime deserves answers, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and join a community that refuses to look away. This is the Easter Sunday Massacre. To understand the tragedy that unfolded on Easter Sunday, 1975, we must first delve into the lives of the Ruppert family, a family whose outward appearance masked internal struggles and tensions. Charity Billy Ruppert, born in 1909, was the matriarch of the family. Widowed since 1946 after the death of her husband, Leonard Sr., Charity was known for her resilience and dedication to her family. She had 2 sons, Leonard Jr., born in 1932, and James, born in 1934. Leonard Jr., the elder son, was a model of success and stability. He earned a degree in electrical engineering and secured a respectable position at General Electric. He married Alma Allgaier, and together they had 8 children, Leonard 3, 17, Michael, 16, Thomas, 15, Carol, 13, and 12, David, 11, Teresa, 9, and John, 4. The family resided in Fairfield, Ohio, and were active members of their community. James, on the other hand, led a markedly different life. Described as quiet and reclusive, he struggled academically and socially during his youth. After attending college for 2 years, he dropped out and trained as a draftsman. By 1975, James was unemployed and living with his mother at the family home on Minor Avenue in Hamilton. He had never married and was known to frequent local bars, often drinking alone. The relationship between James and his family was strained. He reportedly felt overshadowed by his brother's accomplishments and resented the success Leonard Jr. had achieved. Tensions were further exacerbated by financial issues. James owed money to both his mother and brother, having lost much of his savings during the 1973 to 1974 stock market crash. Charity had grown increasingly frustrated with James's inability to hold a job and his excessive drinking, even threatening to evict him from the home. These underlying tensions set the stage for the events that would transpire on that fateful Easter Sunday. A family gathering meant to celebrate togetherness and renewal would instead become the backdrop for one of the most devastating mass murders in Ohio's history. As Easter Sunday approached in 1975, the town of Hamilton, Ohio, prepared for a day of celebration and family gatherings. But within the walls of 635 Minor Avenue, tension simmered beneath the surface. James Urban Ruppert, 41 years old, was a man grappling with personal demons. Unemployed and living with his mother, Charity, James spent his days in a haze of alcohol and resentment. His frequent visits to the 19th Hole Cocktail Lounge were well known. He was a regular, often seen nursing drinks alone, lost in thought. It was here, in the dimly lit corners of the bar, that James voiced his frustrations. Wanda Bishop, a 28-year-old employee at the lounge, recalled conversations with James in the days leading up to Easter. He spoke of his mother's constant nagging, her threats to evict him, and his feelings of inadequacy compared to his successful brother, Leonard Jr. James confided in Wanda, saying he needed to solve the problem. When she inquired if he had found a solution, he replied, "No, not yet." James's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He inquired about purchasing silencers for his weapons and spent time practicing shooting along the banks of the Great Miami River. These actions, in hindsight, were ominous signs of the storm brewing within him. At home, the atmosphere was tense. Charity, exasperated with her son's lack of direction and heavy drinking, had threatened to evict him. James owed money to both his mother and brother, having lost his savings during the 1973 to 1974 stock market crash. The familial relationships were strained, with James feeling overshadowed by Leonard Jr.'s accomplishments. On the night before Easter Sunday, James followed his usual routine, spending the evening at the 19th Hole Cocktail Lounge. He stayed until closing time, leaving in the early hours of the morning. The conversations he had that night would later be scrutinized for clues about his state of mind. As the sun rose on Easter Sunday, the Ruppert family remained unaware of the tragedy that would soon unfold. The signs were there, but the depth of James's turmoil remained hidden until it was too late. On the fateful day, families gathered to celebrate the holiday. Children hunted for eggs, mothers prepared meals, and church bells rang throughout the town. At 635 Minor Avenue, the Ruppert family came together for their Easter tradition. Charity Ruppert, the family matriarch, welcomed her eldest son, Leonard Jr., his wife, Alma, and their 8 children into her home. The children played in the yard, enjoying the spring weather and the excitement of the holiday. Inside, Charity, Leonard, and Alma prepared a meal for the family. James Ruppert, Charity's younger son, had spent the previous night at the 19th Hole Cocktail Lounge, returning home in the early hours of the morning. He slept late into the day, eventually waking up and joining the family downstairs. He engaged in small talk, discussing topics like the stock market with his brother. After a brief interaction, James returned upstairs. What happened next would become one of the most horrific mass murders in American history. Around 4 p.m., James armed himself with a .357 Magnum, 22 caliber handguns, and a .22 caliber rifle. He descended the stairs and entered the kitchen, where he shot his brother, Leonard Jr., in the head. He then turned the gun on Alma, shooting her in the chest. Charity, upon hearing the commotion, confronted James and was shot once in the head and twice in the chest. James then moved into the living room, where the children were playing. He systematically shot each child, ensuring none survived. The victims were Leonard Ruppert III, 17 years old. Michael Ruppert, 16 years old. Thomas Ruppert, 15 years old. Carol Ruppert, 13 years old. And Ruppert, 12 years old. David Ruppert, 11 years old. Teresa Ruppert, 9 years old. John Ruppert, 4 years old. The entire massacre lasted less than 5 minutes. James fired a total of 35 rounds, with 31 bullets striking their targets. The only sign of a struggle was an overturned wastepaper bin. After the killings, James remained in the house for 3 hours before calling the police. When officers arrived, they found James waiting calmly inside the front door. The scene inside was so gruesome that blood had seeped through the floorboards into the basement. The Easter Sunday massacre shocked the nation and left an indelible mark on the community of Hamilton, Ohio. It remains the deadliest shooting to occur in a private residence in American history. As the sun set on Easter Sunday, March 30, 1975, the quiet streets of Hamilton, Ohio, masked the horror that had unfolded within the walls of 635 Minor Avenue. At approximately 9 p.m., James Ruppert picked up the phone and dialed the police. His voice was calm as he reported, "There's been a shooting." He provided no further details. When officers arrived at the scene, they were met by James, who was waiting calmly inside the front door. He was unarmed and showed no signs of distress. The officers proceeded into the house and were confronted with a scene of unimaginable carnage. 11 bodies lay scattered throughout the home, his mother, brother, sister-in-law, and 8 nieces and nephews. Blood had seeped through the floorboards into the basement, a grim testament to the violence that had occurred. The news of the massacre spread rapidly, shocking the local community and the nation. Media outlets descended upon Hamilton, and the story made headlines across the country. Residents struggled to comprehend how such a tragedy could occur in their midst. In the days that followed, investigators began piecing together the events leading up to the massacre. They learned of James's troubled relationship with his family, his financial difficulties, and his increasing isolation. The community grappled with the realization that the signs of James's deteriorating mental state had gone unnoticed or unaddressed. The Easter Sunday massacre left an indelible mark on Hamilton, Ohio. A stark reminder of the fragility of the human psyche and the devastating consequences that can result when warning signs are ignored. The wheels of justice turned slowly in the aftermath of the Easter Sunday massacre, as the community of Hamilton, Ohio, grappled with the enormity of the tragedy. James Ruppert was charged with 11 counts of aggravated murder for the deaths of his mother, brother, sister-in-law, and 8 nieces and nephews. He entered pleas of not guilty and not guilty by reason of insanity to each of the counts. The defense argued that Ruppert suffered from paranoia and delusions of persecution, rendering him incapable of controlling his actions at the time of the killings. The first trial commenced on June 16, 1975, before a 3-judge panel, as Ruppert had waived his right to a jury trial. On July 3, 1975, the panel found Ruppert guilty on all 11 counts of aggravated murder and determined that he was sane at the time of the offenses. He was sentenced to 11 consecutive life sentences. However, the Ohio Supreme Court later ruled that Ruppert had been misinformed about the unanimity requirement for a 3-judge panel verdict, leading to the granting of a new trial. The retrial, delayed by legal appeals, began in 1982 in Hancock County. This time, Ruppert opted for a jury trial. The jury found him guilty of 2 counts of aggravated murder for the deaths of his mother and brother but acquitted him on the remaining 9 counts by reason of insanity. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms. The legal proceedings surrounding the Easter Sunday massacre were complex and emotionally charged, reflecting the challenges of adjudicating cases involving mental illness and mass murder. The community of Hamilton, still reeling from the tragedy, sought closure as the legal system rendered its final judgments. After the courtroom doors closed and the verdict was rendered, James Ruppert began serving his sentence, a life confined within the walls of Ohio's correctional system. Initially incarcerated at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville, Ruppert was later transferred to the Allen Correctional Institution in Lima. In 2019, due to declining health, he was moved to the Franklin Medical Center in Columbus, a facility equipped to handle inmates with significant medical needs. Throughout his incarceration, Ruppert remained a figure of infamy. He was assigned inmate number A169321. Despite the passage of time, the gravity of his crimes ensured that he remained under scrutiny. Parole hearings were held in 1995, 2005, and 2015. Each time, the Ohio Parole Board denied his release, citing his lack of participation in recommended programming, negative institutional conduct, and strong community objections. The board consistently concluded that his release would not be in the best interest of justice. Ruppert's next parole hearing was scheduled for April 2025, when he would have been 91 years old. However, on June 4, 2022, James Ruppert died at the age of 88 while incarcerated at the Franklin Medical Center. The Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction reported that he died of natural causes. The death of James Ruppert marked the end of a dark chapter in Ohio's history, a chapter defined by unimaginable tragedy and the enduring pain of a community forever changed. The events of Easter Sunday, 1975, left an indelible mark on the community of Hamilton, Ohio. The massacre of the Ruppert family by James Ruppert was not just a personal tragedy, it was a communal one. In the immediate aftermath, the town grappled with shock and grief. Neighbors who had known the Rupperts as a quiet, unassuming family were left to reconcile the horrific reality with their memories. The house at 635 Minor Avenue, once a symbol of familial gatherings, became a grim reminder of the tragedy. Over the years, the community sought ways to heal. Memorials were held, and the victims were laid to rest at Arlington Memorial Gardens in Cincinnati. Residents like Jim Irwin made it a point to visit the graves annually, ensuring that the memories of the lost were kept alive. The massacre also left its mark on the cultural landscape. Books such as Easter Sunday Massacre, A Prosecutor's Diary by Karen Holcomb provided an in-depth look into the case, offering insights from those directly involved in the legal proceedings. Documentaries and news segments revisited the events, analyzing the psychological and societal factors that may have contributed to the tragedy. As time passed, the community of Hamilton demonstrated resilience. While the scars of that fateful day remain, the collective efforts to remember, understand, and heal have become a testament to the town's enduring spirit. As we reflect on the events of Easter Sunday, March 30, 1975, we are reminded of the fragility of the human psyche and the devastating consequences that can arise when mental health issues go unaddressed. James Urban Ruppert's actions resulted in the loss of 11 lives, including 8 children, leaving an indelible scar on the community of Hamilton, Ohio. The tragedy underscored the importance of recognizing and addressing mental health concerns, particularly within family dynamics. In the years since the massacre, the Hamilton community has demonstrated resilience and a commitment to healing. Memorials have been held, and the victims are remembered not only for the tragedy that befell them but for the lives they lived. The case has also served as a catalyst for discussions about mental health awareness and the need for accessible support systems. It highlights the critical role that early intervention and open communication play in preventing such tragedies. Let this story serve as a poignant reminder of the importance of compassion, understanding, and proactive support for those struggling with mental health issues. By fostering a community that prioritizes mental well-being, we can work towards preventing future tragedies and honoring the memories of those lost. This case may be over, but the haunting questions remain. What do you think really happened? Was justice served, or is the truth still buried? Share your thoughts in the comments, we want to hear from you. And if these stories stay with you like they do with us, hit like, share with a fellow crime thinker, and subscribe to Crime That Haunts, where your curiosity helps uncover what others forgot.